But I guess that's going to lead us into Ask Yo Aunties then. So, what time is it? Ask
your
Yo
auntie. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess I have it this week. So it says, any suggestions on how to deal with someone who's fighting addiction? Any idea how long before you have to turn your back on someone you love who doesn't seem to want help? And when you try to help them, they sabotage you to everyone making you the bad guy, but occasionally tell you they need help. I'm emotionally exhausted and just want a good life with a good guy, no drugs involved.
Ooh, that's a change of tone for
I
what we've been
know.
doing.
Yeah.
No.
That's
a
what I
heavy
call
one.
the hard left.
Yes.
Literally and
That's when it's
figuratively.
hooked.
Yeah. And I feel this kind of question probably has come up a lot during quarantine. Like the mental health part of it and addiction right now is where a lot of folks are kind of dealing with right now. So we'll ask Crystal first. Like what advice would you suggest?
Yeah. I think you know, I think a lot of times I don't think of fighting addiction or fighting anything when it comes to health and diseases, right? I think so often in our culture, we want to make it a fight, which then means if I'm failing, I'm not strong enough. And as a healthcare provider, I just don't think that's how disease works, right? I don't think I'm someone fighting something. I think I'm a sick person who needs help, right? That's how I try to phrase things. And then that still doesn't get to the, that doesn't change the fact that addiction can cause a lot of harm to a lot of the folks around, anyone who's suffering with the disease of addiction. So I think there's no firm answer of like, how long do you wait? It's not like 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 days. It's like really based on where you are, I think, as an individual. Like, do you have the support you need to support this person without suffering yourself, without getting sicker yourself, without your mental health deteriorating, without your physical safety being put at risk? I think those are the questions we have to ask ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
And then, boundaries, like that's, which is so hard, but it's like, I think it's totally okay to say, like, I love you. I know this is a disease. I know you're sick. I want to help you. I'm here to help you when you're ready. And I can't give you any more money. And you can't come home when you're high on this, that, or the other. I think all of those things are okay boundaries to have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but the very first person that I ever dated, well, the very first gay relationship that I ever had, the guy I was seeing was actually like in his first year of sobriety. And I really didn't know much about, addiction or anything. Prior to that, I was 18 years old. I was still like a kid. Like I was literally still in high school, So once I got out of high school, and we were together for about like 6 months, and I was starting to be more involved. I personally realized in that situation that I was actually enabling them to stay in not stay in a good spot, but I was enabling them to and in the sense of staying put and getting comfortable and not continuing their work and the journey that they need to do to keep progressing. And sometimes staying around and being the person can also be hurting them, because we may not know that we are a crutch at sometimes they're using us to stay in their situations too. So I think it's something you have to also kind of realize too, like, are you truly helping them, or is it something where they're kind of working you into whatever situation that they're currently going through that they need help on? And sometimes they don't know that they're doing it, but we have to sometimes, as the person giving that that help, like Crystal said, you have to make sure you're not getting dragged down and making sure that it's not negatively affecting you too.
What are you thinking, Dawon?
I agree with what everybody said. You know, I personally have not dealt with a partner or someone really super close to me that's had an addiction in this kind of manner. So this is not coming from personal experience, but I think what I'd say is, you know, in situations where you're dealing with someone that is battling something, whatever that is, whether that's addiction, mental health issues, personal identity issues, things of that nature, I think support comes in two ways, and it's really going to echo, you know, kind of what both, you know, Dr. Crystal and Jerrell have said. You know, it's one, ensuring that you're not enabling whatever the behavior is, the negative behavior is around those kinds of things, right? And that because you don't want to contribute to their, you know, their um, uh, lack of healthy choices. I think the other thing is again, being aware of your own triggers, because much like the boundaries that, you know, Dr. Crystal talked about, you know, there can be things that can trigger you, that can impede one's ability to communicate effectively, to have empathy, to be able to think clearly, etc. And so if their behavior is becoming a moment of trigger for you, you know, that can cause emotional breakdown, psychological breakdown, mental breakdown, like all kinds of things that happen, and that can then further erode not only the relationship between you two, but also erode the boundaries that you two have set between you two in terms of how you navigate the relationship that you have, even in the potential chaos that exists between, you know, the disease of addiction or, you know, other kind of ailments that are difficult to control. So, you know, I think as someone who clearly has is emotionally invested in this other person, you know, I would just, you know, ask you to think about, you know, what support do you need that allows you to be able to continue providing the support for your partner in whatever capacity that is. And sometimes saying, I can't be with you is a form of support.
I think what Dawon is saying is so important. Sorry, Kerel, I'm
Oh,
going
no,
to do
you're
that
fine.
thing where as a doctor, I just interrupt everyone.
No,
and talk over
interrupt me.
everyone.
It's good. No, it's good.
But yeah, I mean, I'm personally in recovery. I'll have been in recovery 8 years this summer. You know, and I work in the field of addiction, and my life has been painted with addiction. My mom died from her alcoholism when I was 20. She left when I was really little. I was married to a straight cis het man at one point in my life, who was an alcoholic. You know, and multiple of my partners after that definitely had substance use disorders as well. And so I think the thing Dawon kind of hit the nail on the head with is like, get the support you need as a partner. And so that might look like going to Al-Anon. It might look like going to CODA for like codependency issues. It might look like going to a mental health therapist. It might look like going to a spiritual mentor or guide, like whatever that is you need to take care of yourself and to make sure you're staying safe in this relationship while you're trying to support this person. Have someone you trust who can tell you when you've maybe crossed those boundaries and crossed those lines and you're starting to experience harm yourself.
Yeah. I you all three nailed it. I guess just like the dealing part is just like, for me, I would just say provide the help that you can, you know, whatever the resources you can, but also know when that line is, that boundary is for you. Because if you're saying I'm emotionally exhausted, it seems like that line has already been stepped over, you know, and now it's starting to harm you. So if you've already laid out everything that you're able to, job well done on your end, and it's up to them now to say, hey, I've had enough for myself, that I it's my decision now to go get help, because a lot of times you can't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. Like, you know, and then if they feel like they've been forced, that might trigger them more to be like rebel even more, and you know, and just be like, oh, well, you can't tell me what to do. I don't want to go to rehab. I don't want to do this. So guess what? I'm gonna go deeper in this because it's not my decision. So I'm gonna show them that I can make my own decisions. You know, and so for me, for this particular person that sent it, if you're emotionally exhausted, that shows me you're past that line. You might have to take yourself out the situation. As much as it's going to hurt, as much as it's going to be uncomfortable, because clearly you do love this person, but now it's starting to harm you more than it's necessarily that needs to be in this relationship. So it's not healthy for you. But for me, I, again, haven't been in a situation like this. I've had friends deal with addiction. We actually had a guest auntie last summer, Brandon from Chicago, that came and talked about his journey as well. So reach out potentially to others that you might know that have gone through this journey, that are in recovery, to see what other tools there are in the belt that you just might not know of. But again, you need to know your boundary. And if that boundary gets crossed, you got to take yourself out, because now it's harming yourself. And now you might have to go through something to deal with your addictions, whether that's codependency and things like that. So it's going to be tough.
Also, like everyone isn't built to be that type of support for someone. Like, you have to be a strong pillar. You have
know your ministry.
Right. And it may be something that you may not be able to handle, but you know, at least doing the research as far as, well, then who can I go to that can be that person? That is still a form of help. You know, you don't have to be the one doing all the work, but at least providing the resource for the person that you care about to get the help that they need. That is doing something, and that counts for something as well.
I did have two other thoughts that I thought it would be helpful to share. Survivor's guilt is real. A lot of us people feel like it's our job to fix. And if we're not able to fix, then we bear the burden of feeling like, you know, of the guilt that's associated with, I wasn't able to do this, that, or the other, and taking that more as a personal attack on themselves. And that is a whole process to heal from. You know, so I just want to call that out, that, you know, that's a struggle that a lot of people like deal with. And it may take some work to work through that. So it's not as easy as just like saying, oh, I'm going to leave this relationship where, you know, it's unhealthy for me, and I'm just going to get in another relationship that's going to be with a better person. Not taking the time to self-assess to figure out, are you actually ready to move into a new space? Have you dealt with whatever trauma that has manifested itself as a result of being in that relationship? So that's point number one. Survivor's guilt is real, and it takes time to unpack that. And you may need some support around that. I think the other thing of it is you know, I know it's very like cliche for, you know, especially like on these kind of advice things where, you know, it's like, okay, well, it's not working, that you can leave. Right. And there is truth to that. I think the thing that's important to know is that leaving doesn't always have to be absolute. Leaving can be a, like, you know, a for now thing. So it's like, hey, you know, I can't be with you while you're like this. So while you're like this, I love you. I want to be with you, and I want to build something that's stronger together, with both of us fully committed to whatever that is, you know. But if this is the you that you've committed to be, and that you've resigned to be, and you're resistant to, you know, to getting help and support, you know, then I can't be with you right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a forever decision. It doesn't mean that you have to divorce them. Doesn't mean you have to break up with them, but it could mean that you move out of the house. It could mean that you spend the weekend, a week with, you know, a friend, a loved one, or whatever, to provide some physical distance between you and the other person. And so that you can reapproach the situation, perhaps with clearer heads, and really assess what the long-term strategy could be for the context of your relationship. So I just wanted to put those two kind of like points out there, because I feel like I think we do a pretty damn good job of providing sound advice. But in situations like this, where it's just so complex. This isn't like a, ooh, his dick is too big for my booty hole.
Right.
It's not one of those kind of situations. You know, this is a little bit deeper, and I feel like we owe it to our community to provide, you know, as well-rounded of, you know, an advice as we possibly can on both spectrums, how to deal with them, and then also how to protect and deal with you as an individual.
I was totally thinking the same thing. Like when, you know, Kerel said it might be time to go because you're emotionally exhausted. My first thought was like, and going doesn't have to be forever. It could just be for the weekend. You know, to give yourself some space and to get the support you need to go back and tackle the problem.
And we know that's a luxury probably because not everyone may have a family that could go wherever, you know. Maybe it's just literally taking the day to go take a walk in the damn park or something, you know, just get out of the environment for a second. Especially with COVID, like we've all been locked up in the house, you know, for the most part. So it's just like, maybe just walk the dog extra, whatever it may look like, go grocery shopping longer, whatever it may be, to get you some time to decompress. Because that emotional part, once you get that baggage, that Erykah Badu baggage, woo, it's hard to let go of it because you feel like you have some ownership on that in a weird way, you know? It's just like, that's not your baggage for it right now. So, woo, that's a deep one right there. But continue to send your questions to Ask Your Aunties for aya@minorityareport.com or DM us. And we'll continue to try to support you however we can, whether it be resources that we place out there. But yeah, that's a deep one.
Online, folks can go to like AA, Smart Recovery, and Refuge and Recovery are 3 organizations that do support groups for folks fighting the disease of addiction or suffering from the disease of addiction. And there's usually resources for family and friends as well at those websites. FYI, Refuge and Recovery did have a recent scandal because the founder had some I think he sexually assaulted folks. I was going to say sexual misconduct, but that's like painting the picture brighter. Interestingly enough, though, historically, one of the founders of AA was known to be a womanizer back in the 40s and often had to have a keeper at AA conferences so he would behave. So it's tough, right? Because we want the people who really help folks to not have such horrible
their own stuff,
shit happening. But, you know, unfortunately, that's not always the case. It doesn't mean that the programs that they help create haven't helped lots of folks.
That's true. Before we get going even more here, I know, Dawon, it's been Arab American History Month, and I know you had something you wanted to share.
So April is Arab History Month, and though we don't on this podcast, at least for ourselves, we don't identify as part of the Arab community, we are certainly allies. As
I'm Blacknese, boo. I'm Arab one.
Right. You get an injection in some way.
Yes, ma'am.
But no, it's, you know, this is just an opportunity to every time we have like these kinds of celebratory months, it's an opportunity for education and engagement and community building. And, you know, I personally don't know a lot about Arab communities, although, you know, I've been trying to do my work, and, you know, part of that is, you know, watching documentaries and videos and things of that nature to really give me an inside look into some of the, you know, the complexities of their experience. And so, I wanted to just highlight a movie that I highly recommend. You know, it's called Oriented, Oriented. It was made in 2015, and it follows the story of 3 gay Palestinian men who live in Tel Aviv, as they confront their sexual identities and national identities and the intersectionality that exists between that. So it's documentary style where they're following these folks, and you get to see the struggle of coming to terms with who you are and how that conflicts with an entire nation, and, you know, talk about systems of oppression where it's very difficult for you to be who you are publicly. So highly recommended. Very raw and authentic and real, and just gives you a sense of the LGBTQ plus community outside of the confines of the United States. And my hope is that you'll enjoy it. So
yeah, I've seen that one actually. Corey and I watched that. Maybe can't remember if it was here in Dallas, but it is very, very good.
Yeah,
it's
some
amazing.
cuties.
yeah, they are. I've seen it too. Yeah.
Oh man.
I
But
think this month
go
is
ahead.
also considered Black Women's History Month. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
on that?
April, yeah, it is. It
Mhm.
is. I know
Yeah.
it's just interesting how so many of these months like overlap now. It's like everybody get a month, but hey, I'm here for it. Let's rep everybody.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
definitely try to get some additional just nuggets throughout this month for both of those.
And we're
Absolutely.
doing, just to be like a business owner for a hot
Yeah.
minute, at Queer Doc, we are doing some free services for POC women this month.
Awesome.
So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. And where can I find you?
Queerdoc.com. Thanks for helping me be a better business
Hey, I got you,
owner.
boo. I got you. That's queerdoc, DOC.com.